This is some running footage of my presentation of Junkboxx at the Flex Theater, but I lost all the audio. So I had a director's commentary, but I'm having to redo it, but that's okay. Anyway, my name is Peter Chanthanakone, and I'm the director, and this is the director's commentary behind the scenes of Junkboxx. I'm not a huge fan of opening sequences, so I quickly want to get to the story. The challenge was trying to make you care about Junkboxx and putting you into the situation that this character is a mascot at a theme park. I think it's very unique to think about theme parks in that they've got these characters, and yet what if they were alive, and if the theme park was no longer in use. So that was the premise of the story, and I wanted to tie it around the idea of energy and the loss of energy. So this character is getting kicked out of the park, and he's having to kind of say his goodbyes. There's 5 characters in this film, and I'm going to talk about a little bit of the design of each character, because in the first version there's only 2 characters, and the metallic ones are the characters, and in fact this larger one becomes the skinnier version. This sequence is where he gets his house and he builds his house, and I wanted to do it in a quick fashion. It was inspired by the huts in Laos, which is where my parents are originally from. There's all sorts of Easter eggs like the Chanthanakone crunch. Quickly saw that, and this shot reminds me of the City of God film, kind of this hot and sweaty, no life type of shot. This foreshadows what's going to happen later on. That's why that's there, the dream sequence. This jump cut connects the 2 characters as they're both searching for the same thing, energy. Creates a nice connection, I think. It's pretty difficult to see, but that little wire there connects to his energy, which then connects outside to his solar panel and windmill. And here again is the idea of, okay, we're using renewable energy, but how much are we really using it? And how available or how successful will it be? So I wanted to have that there to kind of suggest what's going to happen. This windmill is no longer in the film, but it was meant to save himself. The characters weren't originally supposed to talk, which is why their mouth shapes don't really move too much. But it seemed to make more sense to have them in some sort of dialogue. That is my voice, the bee, by the way. This new scene where he's trying to find energy is a great way, because he is going into an energy store, kind of like a staff store for the robots to get energy. And it was quickly created within a couple of weeks.
Let's keep searching.
You know, I'm a huge fan of getting the character from point A to point B. Saw right there, and the arcade was constantly crashing in terms of rendering. And because I think I used a lot of Google SketchUp models, which a little bit was an experiment, but there's 9 modeling layers that were turned on and off throughout that sequence to get it to render correctly. The character dies here is an interesting plot point. 1 dies, it's a journey of 2, but 1 dies. I wanted to create that idea of emotion through the tears, but not be too cheesy. That right there, that arcade cabinet, is Chris Northcutt, lead modeler. I stole that image from Facebook. This Canadian flag, another series of Easter eggs. People say I don't look Canadian, but I don't know, I am. This POV, reminiscent of RoboCop, but it really helps the audience realize the urgency of the problem, that he is really running out of energy, and really shows how weak he is. And you should be able to see the other Easter egg, and that's the little boy that he saves in the beginning. And his head's now decapitated, but he's also the main character in Death of the Different. So I'm reusing some characters, which is a lot of fun. I never really noticed the interiors of some of the theme park rides. After going to Disney World and getting some of the experience, I was able to apply it, especially in this environment. I made the energy bar like a gas station. Just thought it was perfect since gas prices are going up so much now. Love the sound effect here that Rabbi Tang did. He's a sound effects guy and the musical composer, incredibly talented. I like the solution that I came up with here in terms of getting the character from inside of the ride outside. And originally had it as a warp sequence, just like him getting from the battery store to the arcade. but I really think this worked out well. I wanted to bring him outside to see his friends, and this was kind of inspired by the movie Up. In terms of how the dog is introduced to the story, and I think the commentary here is, you know, these characters are really fun and happy, but look inside, life is so great. But again, to tie in the characters, because the characters were developed, those three that are there, after the fact. After realizing the story and the experimental process that wasn't really working, they had to restructure the story and introduce some more additional characters. So the character on the left and the character on the right, the koala and the chef, were added characters. So that's why they look the way they look. And there's a clean version and a rough version of them. I also wanted to play with lighting. And this is probably my favorite lighting sequence. And the bokeh, in terms of the camera effect, is working really well. With over 120 shots, you can see how the lighting is changing in each shot. Whether it's cloudy, and here it's sunny. The color of the shadows are also changing too, from a sky blue. He charges his friend up. And in any 3D animated film, you've got to do some slow-mo. Kind of a half bullet time slow-mo. Just to emphasize the point. And I think the piano hits work really well to add emotion, because adding emotion is very difficult for 3D animation, especially when animation is typically seen as an entertainment for kids, comedy type of thing. I think some of our greatest memories is of our childhood and it's of birthdays, and I thought it was just perfect to bring back his birthday with his friends when they were alive, and he decides to make that choice. You see the subtle glows, maybe you don't, but he is charging his friends up. And you can really see the detail of the texture work that was put into these characters. I mean, they look really, really worn out. It was difficult to come up with the backgrounds, and I really should have used matte painting for that, but I kind of filled it with random background elements. So for next time, that's definitely something that I will consider, is matte painting those backgrounds in. It's going to save a lot for rendering as well.
Junkboxx. Maybe we can help him.
The celebration that he's back to life, inspired by my uncle's sequence. He had a picture of my uncle when he won a motorcycle race and he was on everyone's shoulder in Laos. Thought that was really great. The soundtrack here was inspired by Friends. So I sent that track over to Rabbi and he came up with his own rendition of it. And when friends get together, you always have to have a drink. It could be a drink of whatever dark beverage you can think of. And I wanted to really poke fun at during this montage in terms of the situation of things. And everyone's got a friend who just, things just don't go right. Everyone has a friend that sucks at life, so that's where the chef comes into play here. You saw in the credits, the film is dedicated to Matt Wilmerth. He's a former student of mine who passed away suddenly. He created that Ferris wheel, and I thought it was only appropriate to have that as a final sequence. He, one summer, along with 7 other students, began working on the project, and during that entire summer, he was the only one of the 7 that was able to produce anything. And I really wanted to dedicate this film to him because he was such a hardworking student. The moon, although the ending is very sad, the characters are all kind of dead and asleep, suggests that there's going to be sun in the morning, and so they will wake up again. And that was really one of the main messages of the story. You can have energy, you can have all the things you have in your life, but without friends or someone to share it with, what does it really mean? So I added this last sequence to let the whole audience know that, who knows, there might be a sequel. So that's the end of the director's commentary. Thanks again for watching, and if you have any questions, just shoot me an email, peter@pixate.com.